to another PNM meeting. Welcome to another Team Rowley campaign meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, he needs no long introduction. He is well known, he is well respected. He has led this party with distinction over the last 8 years. He has been elected to lead it again for 4 more years, and more if he so desires. So ladies and gentlemen, to deliver the feature address at tonight's meeting, let's stand and welcome the political leader of the People's National Movement and Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. the Honourable Keith Christopher Rowley.
We are a chosen generation, to show all I require for life, God has given me, and I know who I am. We are a chosen generation.
Thank you very much, Party Chairman, Mr. Franklin Khan, Party Vice Chairman and candidate for Chairman, Member of Parliament for Diego Martin Northeast, Mr. Colum Imbert. Permit me to pay special recognition to the Member of Parliament for Horquetta Talparo, Mr. Maxi Coffey. And I must say that it is indeed a miracle that Maxi is here with us, and God is good to all of us. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Mrs. Joan Yule Williams, our Deputy Political Leader, Party and Elections, Deputy Political Leader, Policy, Mr. Rohan Sinanan, Deputy Political Leader Legislative, Ms. Marlene MacDonald, other party officers, particularly the executive of La Horquetta Talparo. Tonight I've heard all kind of people saying all kind of things about who was first and who was there and who was the youngest. I have a claim that none of them could have. I am the youngest member of the PNM, of any PNM executive, to ever have addressed the constituency as the first member of the executive to address the new constituency of La Horquetta Talparo. That is a distinction which only I could make. And of course, tonight you would have heard them in their presentations telling you they're from here, they're from there, they're from everywhere. The only place Lehunt has not been is in the moon. But I too have my story, you see, because I am from Tobago East. So Tobago East is present in the executive. I'm from Mason Hall in Tobago. And I contested the seat of Tobago West. So I'm moving on in the PNM. You see, you have to be all over this party if you want to run this party. You have to know this party. And then I joined this party in the center of the East-West corridor in Tunapuna. And then, of course, they say wise men came from the east. They must have gone to the west. So I'm now in Diego Martin West. And every one of the candidates who came here tonight could tell you that they've been in this party through thick and thin, all over this country, because the PNM is the only national political party in Trinidad and Tobago. We have fought elections in Tobago so many times. I can't remember ever seeing the UNC campaigning in Tobago. But tonight you would have heard of a PNM party officer from Trinidad, from central Trinidad, who was managing THA campaigns in Tobago and doing so successfully. That's the PNM. Only the PNM could present that. Look at how many members of this team came out of the PNM Youth League. And it is only an organized party could talk to you about an assistant general secretary who could easily have moved into the position of general secretary without losing a step or batting an eyelid, and the party functioned perfectly. And it's only the PNM could talk to you about its headquarters and its archives at the headquarters, where every single meeting of the General Council or the Central Executive is recorded and is there for posterity and there to be examined by those who will come later on to look at the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Because the history of Trinidad and Tobago, the political history of Trinidad and Tobago, is the history of the PNM since 1956. That's our party. So when we say we're PNM and proud, and we say great is the PNM, that is what we are talking about. That's what we're talking about. And then, you know, this party is like any other good, effective political party. We're not a monolith where we all, you ever look at North Korea? You see how everybody clapping, if you don't clap zealously, as the last time you were clapping, right? And if you don't, when the dear leader is part, every single person look alike, and they're all doing amazing choreography. But that choreography is not what we are about in the PNM, nor the Labour Party in England, nor the Democratic Party in the United States. Any good political party has divergence of views, and sometimes within that large tent of the party, there are groups of people who have different points of views that, for them, that is the essence of their presence in the party. But to be a member of the PNM, even with a divergence of view on issues, to be a member of the PNM, to pass through the Central Executive and to get that membership, you simply have to be a patriot in Trinidad and Tobago. That's all you have to be. That's the only qualification. You want to have good for Trinidad and Tobago. You want to contribute to Trinidad and Tobago's development, and you ought to be a good citizen. So when you apply to the PNM, once you are a patriot, with no obstacle in your way, you are ready to be a member of the PNM. But of course, there are times when you have to take a stand on issues. And sometimes we have our differences with some members in the party, because if you follow them, they take you straight back to where you came from in the opposition. And there are times when you need to strengthen the party, because the party is always being challenged by the circumstances of the day. What Dr. Williams faced is not what George Chambers faced. What George Chambers faced is not what Patrick Manning faced. And what I'm facing now is not what he faced, and vice versa. So the party has to be able to adapt. And I remember when I first talked about removing the Balizé tie from the necks of members of parliament who are going into parliament to represent the country. There were people in the PNM. In fact, there's one gentleman, I haven't got a letter from him. I suspect he's a gentleman. It might be a woman, but I think he's a gentleman. Used to write me an offensive letter every month for about 5 years. I will get this, I got to know the handwriting. As soon as I saw the letter, I would know that person. And inside the letter, they would make mention of the issues of the day, and I'll get a tongue lashing for removing the Balizé tie. And the accusation was that I didn't like Eric Williams, and that's why I moved away Eric Williams' tie. I haven't heard from him for a while. I hope he's still around and doing well, but I haven't got my mail. But you see, when you try to make changes, there are some persons who are very, very opposed to change. Sometimes you might see the change being obviously the best thing to do, but from their perspective, from their vantage point, that change is going to mash up the party, it's going to destroy the country, and they want no part of it. So when we went to do the one man, one vote, which was going to replace the delegate system, because the delegate system was you asking somebody to vote for you. That's what it is. It happens at the party group level, we had one man, one vote down there, but after that, persons were representing you going up. And the general election is very much like that. You elect somebody to act on your behalf in the parliament and in the government. Even though, of course, nowadays you hear persons saying that the government mustn't make any decisions. Any decision must come back to Woodford Square on a Sunday morning and throw up things in the air. And if throw confetti in the air, and depending on whose head it falls on, then that person gets to make the decision. That's one point of view. But we went around the country for a year. A year we went around the country, taking to the party members the issue of broadening our democracy so that we could have each member like you are here tonight given the opportunity to elect the party executive. And to some members in the minority in the end turned out to be, that was such a ridiculous position that it could not be countenanced. Because you know why? Eric Williams used to use delegate system, and of course you want to change it, and therefore you are out of order. And of course, the logistics of doing that would have been so overwhelming that it couldn't be done. And if we did that, we will destroy the party. We went to a convention, and amazingly in that convention, the delegates voted virtually unanimously to accept the argument that the time has come for the one man, one vote, which has worked very well since we have put it in place. But there was one individual who was so resolutely opposed to change that he stood up in that convention and made a presentation which was unforgettable in opposition to one man, one vote. I'm very pleased to say it has to be that he's come around, because today he's running for office under the one man, one vote system. I'm sure he's come around. But the point I want to make is that I've heard it said that the main motivating factor for those in opposition to the slate that I'm endorsing is that they want to control the political leader. And I'm saying to myself, if that is the motivation as is being broadcast and is being put out there, that if we control the screening committee, we will then control the political leader and we'll control the candidate selection at screening time. And in that way, we'll control the party. If that is so, you party members, what in effect they're asking you to do is to vote for discord at the level of the executive of this great party. And that discord I know very well, because I have seen it at work. It is not to say that the leader is asking for blind loyalty and blind support, because everybody knows. If you know the people who are elected, I'm asking you to elect, none of them is a yes man or a yes woman. None. They all are very good at making their case, and that is what you want in an executive. People who will stand up and make their case. And on many occasions, the case is made by any member in that executive, not by the leader or the chairman. And that is the strength of the PNM. When we get together in Balize House and we put things on the table, there's no first, second, and third. Everybody in the wicket to bat, because we want runs to win the game. And the good ideas come from all around that table. And what you need is cooperation. What you need is respect. What you need is camaraderie. What you need is relationships. And what you need most of all is an unbreaking commitment to the PNM. You have to be committed to the PNM in fair weather and in foul. A member of the party who is only a member of the party publicly and otherwise when the party is up and running. But if the party hits a bit of a bad patch, you are campaigning against the party, and you are in fact the most in opposition to the party and virtually telling people, don't vote for the PNM. As far as I'm concerned, if you ever do that, you would have been disqualified forever as a member of any executive in this party. And unfortunately, we have that. We have that. You see, I remember as deputy political leader of the PNM under Patrick Manning in 1991, we looked at the seats that we could win to win the election. And there was one seat that the PNM had a history of winning, and we had it down to win. We had done the work in the opposition, and the polls were showing that we were in line to win that seat, and that seat was Faizabad. It's 1991. I was sent to Faizabad when the election was almost upon us to work with the Faizabad executive to choose a candidate in Faizabad to win that seat. And the reason why I went down there, sent by the political leader to go and deal with the situation, is because Faizabad was nominating 9 people from the executive to run for the seat. And we saw trouble. 9 members of the executive, nobody would give way to anybody else. Everybody wanted to be the candidate because the seat was winnable. I went down there as deputy political leader. I thought that using the office of deputy political leader to talk to them, using the authority of the fact that I was sent by the political leader to talk to them. And you know, well, sometimes I could talk, I could persuade people, not Faizabad. I left Faizabad and I had to report to the political leader that we still have 9 aspirants. Not a man or woman would move. And they hold on to that position. I suspect that Mr. Manning himself, I'm not sure about that, but I suspect that he himself, after I reported back to him, that he would have spoken to, if not all of them, but 1 or 2 of them, asking them, let good sense prevail. Let us support a candidate. Eventually, we had to choose a candidate because we can't put up 9 candidates in the seat. So the leadership that is responsible for the party made a choice, and we selected what we thought was the best person for the seat. That candidate now have 8 enemies. 8 of the 9 not giving their 100% or not at all supporting the 9th candidate. And we lost the Faizabad seat, I think by 166 votes, some similar figure. And since then, Faizabad has gone on to become a UNC stronghold, where we're losing it by 3,000 votes and that. We lost it because there were party members who did not think that supporting the political leader's position or the party's executive position was the thing to do. They put personal position in front of party position. And I dare say, I could tell you, we got to a point where had we got the Faizabad seat in the parliament, that election of 95 may not have been called, and the history of this country might have been different. I could tell you, those 8 people in Faizabad changed the history of Trinidad and Tobago. That's how it goes. It's as important as that. And you think it finished there? That was then. 2015. We had to send back Barataria 5 times. They wouldn't budge. Because there were people, there were individuals who were putting themselves above the party's interests and putting themselves above the national interest. Every time we asked them to allow good sense to prevail and let us choose a candidate around whom all can rally, individuals fought and fought and fought and fought. Eventually, we went to the polls and we lost Barataria's hour by 500 votes. And worse than that, in another seat, where a candidate came in after fighting the same way. But of course, democracy prevails in the PNM, and you are given the opportunity to have your say and your way eventually sometimes. A candidate came in with 1 month before the general election, and we lost the seat by 800 votes. 1 month before the election, we were able to convince the executive to cooperate. So I tell you these stories so you could understand that there's a role for the membership, and there's a role for the leadership, and there's a role for the leader. And it is those who understand that that are the best stewards in this party. And tonight I can identify all of them for you. Daniel Duki, for the position of Assistant General Secretary. Abdon Mason for the position of Field Officer. Foster Cummins for the position of General Secretary. Indar Parasram for the position of Elections Officer. Laurel Lizama for the position of Public Relations Officer. Robert Lehan for the position of Vice Chairman of the PNM. Avinash Singh for the position of our Social Media Officer. And Dale Young as our Youth Officer. And present tonight for the position of Chairman of the People's National Movement, the hardworking, the one and only Colum Imbu. These are the people. Did I miss out anybody who's present here? Well, of course. If Irene didn't come here tonight, we wouldn't have been in this meeting. Because Irene, where's Irene? Irene Hines, Operations Officer. Operations Officer. And we have those who have been, and Mr. Padmore is not here, but he is contesting for the position of Education Officer. And with all the time I've been in the PNM and my experience, I look forward to being educated by Mr. Padmore during the coming executive, because he has so much to offer, not just the young ones, but all of us. And of course, we have Jennifer Baptiste-Parmus, who has been elected unopposed, because given the amount of talent we have in the party, but we also see that the party has seen that it makes no sense on this occasion to contest against Mrs. Baptiste-Parmus, because she's the best that we can offer, that we have in the area of labor relations. And of course, why are we surprised that Jocelyn Bodden is elected unopposed? She is the welfare officer who looks after the welfare of the party's business and those persons who look to the welfare department for those programs that she leads. And of course, we had Howard Chinley coming up through the Youth League. Howard is somewhere here tonight. Coming up through the Youth League, serving as a member of the cabinet, serving as chairman of state enterprise and so on, and has always, never wavering, whether we're in or out of government, these are the people who keep this party together. Howard Chinley as our treasurer. And who else is elected unopposed? And of course, the former member of parliament for the Horquetta, Aruka South, and is now Aruka Maloney, the lady vice chairman, Mrs. Camille Robinson Regis. So already the party is showing that it knows what it is doing. So those persons who are elected unopposed, the party has said, we are on this occasion, we see no reason to want to contest this position, because the individual who has offered him or herself, we believe is the best person at this time, and therefore we save some ballot paper in that situation. And on that basis, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all very sincerely for giving me the support and the opportunity and the responsibility to guide this party into the next term of 4 years as your political leader. Tonight, I'm not going to be very long, because most of the evening I was pleased to see the candidates making their sales pitch to you and identifying themselves and identifying our party's position on the landscape in Trinidad and Tobago. You hear me every night, so you don't have to hear me long tonight, because you see, as I give way to them, it's a bit of a passing of the baton. As we go into the local election and the general election, I could stay home on nights and listen to them, because I know the party is in good hands. I did not assume any responsibility by virtue of any superiority in choosing this. I did it by using my experience for the party's benefit. And I looked around our party, and I encouraged these particular individuals who I have used my experience to identify some of them who are already in the landscape, others were not. Those who were not, I've asked them to come forward. Those who were there, I've asked them to remain. And all of them, to a man and to a woman, did not hesitate to say yes, that they will offer themselves for the work. Because being on the executive is work. It's not showman or showwoman business. It is work to be done to keep this party on its upward trajectory in Trinidad and Tobago. And this is a very difficult time. It's not an easy time. We have to swim against swift currents. We have to climb high mountains this time in Trinidad and Tobago, because there are those who will not allow good sense to prevail. There are those who have nothing to offer except their negative vibes. And we of the PNM, we are not here for the next election. We are here beyond the next generation. We are here for the future of Trinidad and Tobago, as long as Trinidad and Tobago has a future. That is who we are. That is who we are. Tonight, I'm a little bit tired because I've been on the move for 2 days, pretty much non-stop. I've just come back from Guyana. I spent the day in Guyana yesterday, went down very early in the morning, spent the day with the Guyanese, with the government and people of Guyana. Came in very early this morning, went to cabinet and continued the day, and I've come straight to this meeting at the end of the day. So I'm happy that the young members and the new members of the executive are already practicing their assumption of responsibility. But while I was in Guyana, where we just signed a document where Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana have agreed to work more closely together, and that relationship should strengthen both Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana, because our future is good if we make it good. If we make that future good, the President of Guyana and myself, we've agreed to say to our people, if we work together, we can have a better future. And at the end of the function, the formal function, there was a press conference. And one of the reporters asked the following question, which might be a valid question, except that I was not prepared for the way it was asked. The question was, you all have had oil and gas, or oil, you all have had oil for over 100 years. And look at the state that Trinidad is in now. What can you say to Guyana? What kind of advice, given the state that Trinidad is in, that you can give to Guyana now that Guyana is about to be an oil-producing country? Now, that person must know the Trinidad parlance, because when you say somebody is in a state, it means that they're in a bad way. Yeah? Look at the state that you're in, right? And I was taken by surprise, but it didn't take me more than 2 seconds to respond. And my response was this. We are swimming in oil for over 100 years. But it is the management of what we earn from that oil sector that has given the people of Trinidad and Tobago the quality of life that we know. And Trinidad and Tobago is not in any state. We have our difficulty, and we are managing those hurdles. And the state that was being referred to is the closure of a refinery. And that is a piece of equipment that was being used in the oil industry. And it has worked well for us for quite some time. But there comes this time when it is not working well for us, and we have no difficulty at this time in taking the necessary corrective action. Because you see, it is what we have done as a people using the resources of the hydrocarbon sector largely, especially in the last 2 or 3 decades, that has allowed us to move from where we were to where we are. Because some people believe that the difficulties that we may have today are the worst things that ever happened to us in this country. Let me ask you all something. How many of you remember when Land Rovers used to drive around this country And on the doors of the Land Rover, there will be a sign of the Health Department, whoever it is. And it was the eradication, it was a yours eradication program. Anybody here know what yours is? Anybody in this room know what yours is? YAWS? Well, when you go home, go and look it up. I wouldn't tell you what it is. It was a medical problem, right? Which was so widespread in this country that a major government program involving going out into communities. The first Land Rovers I saw were Land Rovers in that program going out there to eradicate yours. And I asked any old person who you know who's still alive if they ever know what jigger is in your foot. You walk around barefoot in this country and you get jigger in your toe. That was normal in Trinidad and Tobago. Today, we have one of the best public healthcare system in the Commonwealth. Notwithstanding all the bad mouthing that you hear about outside the hospital. Recently, I had the opportunity of going into the hospital at night to see one of my very close friends on the ward. And as I stayed and I look around at those who are working on the ward, providing health care to those who are least able to help themselves, some of them were not able to help themselves at all. And you see the doctors, the nurses, the attendants, those who are cleaning the floor, providing health care. You never see that in the papers. You never hear it on the radio. But it's there, available. And cutting edge technology available. I go to Mount Hope. Mount Hope is one of the largest hospitals in the region providing public health care in Trinidad and Tobago. But if you hear some people talk, we're in a state. Yes, we have difficulties. Yes, we have issues to address. And it's when we address those issues, that it calls for leadership, the kind of leadership that the PNM provide in Trinidad and Tobago. The leadership that says, if the best man for the job is a former government minister not aligned to the PNM, and that person is chosen for the job, that is the kind of leadership that says country first and distinguish the PNM from others. It is the leadership that says, for decades, the single largest component of the national budget is spent on education, educating our children from kindergarten up to university, and we're still doing that even in this difficult period. That is the state that we are in, prioritizing to make sure that we have the money available put there to ensure that the next generation is educated to being better than we are. And as long as we are doing that, and have the leadership to do that, this country will continue to go from strength to strength. We have made infrastructural development in this country. I'm not that old, but I know when Tobago, transport in Tobago was no sea bridge. It was the coastal steamer service that used to have to go around all the way around to Charlottesville from Scarborough and come back to Plymouth, back to Scarborough. That was the transport in Tobago. And we didn't behave the way we're behaving now. Even as we are saying that we are buying new vessels for Tobago so that eventually in a matter of months, not 10 years from now, but in a matter of 18 months or thereabouts, we will have new ferries to replace what is there now. Don't upset yourself, it's going to be done. It is being done. We have placed the order. That is the leadership that this country calls for, and the leadership that the PLM provides. And as we ask you to support this team, and as you support me as the leader, this party has a major role to play, not just to the executive or to the party, but to the country, to make sure that the country stays on the right track. Because if there is no political support for the leadership, the decisions that are having to be made may not be made. The reason why other political parties have not made the decisions to improve this country is because they didn't have the political support and the strength and the backing of a political party. So when they stand up, they know behind them are the people gathered, in this case in red, saying that we put country first. and we will support our party to put country first. And that is why I would not like in the executive of the PNM that, like what happened with the one man, one vote, when everybody get up and say, yes, one man, one vote. One man get up and say, no, we can't do that. Okay, fine. But we are in government now. You could imagine what's going to happen if when we say, yes, this party is supporting the making of the Caribbean Court of Justice as our final court of appeal, and that is a policy that this party will advance to the country, into the parliament. We need support for that because it is not entirely acceptable to many people. But if the party is strong and supporting it and leading the country, then we may get for the country the benefit of that move. And then somebody on the PNM executive say, I'm not supporting that. I'm not supporting that because it's too far-fetched. It's too far out. It is too this. You need a oneness of leadership to carry the debate, to carry it. And of course, when you go to battle in the political arena, or even on the physical battlefield, the last thing you want is when the going gets tough and the enemy looks as if they have some profile higher than yours. And when you look back, you don't see those who were supposed to be your team. Or worse, when you hear the shot, it's coming from behind you, one of your own. You want to have the confidence that whatever state the battle is in, that you can count on your people to stand with you. Because if you have the rectitude of your cause and you have the commitment to your vision, you will always prevail when the battle is over. And that is what the PNM leadership is asking for from its membership. And that is what distinguishes us from all the others. You hear them saying, oh, the PNM has been in government for so long, and therefore the problems that the country should have been solved, and they have not been solved because the PNM hasn't solved them. Every country has problems of one kind or another every day of the year. There's no country in the world that doesn't have some kind of problem. So any government in any country at any time has to deal with some problem. But when you ask yourself, the era when the NAR was in office, what are they remembered for? Two things. One, they brought in a change to the taxation system, VAT. That was an NAR initiative. And the second thing, 1990, government fall apart in a coup. Those are the two things. There's nothing else that distinguishes the NAR. Nothing. The UNC, under Mr. Pandey, what is that government remembered for? They built an airport terminal building. It is there now. And that terminal building was labeled as one of the most corrupt projects that ever took place in Trinidad and Tobago. And a large handful of them went to jail, and some come out early, and some come out late, and some refused to go to court. That is what distinguished that period. And then, of course, there's another period of 5 years under Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa. This one was a very special one because 5 years, the 5 largest budgets ever handled by any prime minister in Trinidad and Tobago, the 5 largest budgets. She had those budgets in her term. Tonight I ask you, think for a moment. What can you identify as improvements to this country as a result of the tenure of the Kamala Prasad Bisesa government? Tell me. The only thing that government can be distinguished for was political instability in the cabinet, the largest cabinet, changing every Monday morning. One time I was in the parliament and the speaker asked for the local government minister to stand up. 3 of them stand up one time. That was the nature of that government. And of course, having left office, history will record that the only thing you can point to the period of Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa's government was rampant corruption. rampant corruption in all its forms and fashion. And they could jump high, they could jump high, they could jump low. Those are the facts. It was a leadership that encouraged and allowed and turned a blind eye to the worst forms of corruption. And if I had time tonight, I could list them all for you, from live sport to the OAS project going to Point 14. And if you, the PNM members, didn't support your PNM candidates to form a PNM government, we could show you a list, and we'll show you eventually, a list of billions of dollars that would have been paid to people purporting to have done work for the state. Some of them were already certified. Many of them, they had in-house estimates. For example, the in-house estimate for the Curep interchange was $500 million. They had awarded a contract already on the eve of the election. 2 ministers were fighting over that contract because they had preferences. The end result is one minister was fired and the contract was annulled, and the election came and you elected the PNM into office. We are now building that overpass for $200 million less than it was estimated for. We are now continuing the road to Point 14. Many contractors are at work. Only today the cabinet approved 2 more contracts on that highway. And we have 2 more to go back out to tender, taken back, and it's being funded by $1 billion. I don't mean $1 million, you know. $1,000 million that we have taken back from that contractor that went bankrupt, that this government has fought for in courts abroad, won the fight, got back the money, and we are spending it now on the highway. That is the difference between us and them. And they suspected that we would have done that. So you know what they did? The week before the election, they removed from the contract the clause that said that we could sue, we could go after the contractor if he became bankrupt and get him off the contract. So to prevent us from removing the bankrupt contractor, they took out that clause. I am not here telling you any story. Those are the facts. So we went after them and we called the bond, and they resisted. They wanted to abandon the project as they did before the election, and they wanted to hold on to the $1 billion bond. We had to fight on your behalf to get back the money, on $1 billion, and we are now spending that money. I'm asking you, they canceled the OPVs that were paid for after the Patrick Manning government had taken action to give us those vessels. They canceled it, and they took back $1 billion from the contractor in England. Can anybody in the UNC tell you specifically what that $1 billion was used for? But the PNM could tell you, we got back $1 billion from OAS, and it's being spent to finance the construction of the highway to Point 14. You can go and see it. Whatever happened to the $1 billion that came out from the cancellation of the OPVs? Can't tell you. And therein lies the difference. Those are the kinds of differences. And we are going to continue to provide this country with leadership, with vision, with caring, and with that boundless faith in our destiny, because we believe that there's a bright future for Trinidad and Tobago, not next week, next month, or next year, but forever as a nation for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And that our young people can grow up knowing that they have a country in this world that they can call theirs, and a country that provides them with sustenance and an opportunity to live in dignity and to progress like anybody else anywhere in the world. And you know who demonstrated that most for us? Our sportsmen and women. Our sportsmen and women. And that is why even in this difficult period, the leadership of this country, we are ensuring that we incentivize them, because when they go out there and they end up on that podium saying that Trinidad and Tobago has won a medal, that is what we do. That's what we do. We fight to be at the pinnacle of success. And when you go on that podium, you come first, you come second, and you come third. You have taken our country with you upwards and upwards. And we find that money, we prioritize, we support our young children, we support our elderly, because they are all those who are on those social support programs. They are still there. Every month they get their check. Even though the Minister of Finance is struggling and we're operating deficit budgets, we have not reduced the amount of expenditure on one single social support program. We have not reduced our social support commitment to those persons who rely on that check from the Ministry of Social Development when the month comes, and that is what leadership does. So when they say that Trinidad and Tobago is in a state, that is the state that we are in, the state of confidence, the state of progress, and the state of a future. That's the state that we are in. And to have that as your legacy, you have to have a political party like the People's National Movement. And we are not here formed in any rum shop over a bottle of rum. We are here formed out of the intellectual strength of Dr. Eric Williams, who in 1956 saw a future for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I dare say, after 62 years, and we are now in our 63rd year, the record will show that all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, through hard times and good times, we have all prospered, and we all in this together. We're all in this together. So tonight, I want to thank all those who have agreed to run for office in this election. On this team or in any other team, we have our symbol. I understand that some people are having difficulty finding a symbol. Any suggestions? If you have any suggestions for symbols, please let them know, because they have difficulty finding some symbol. But our symbol is very simple. Very simple. If you use my name, as you have done, what you see is what exists. And what you see is what you get. And you're running on my record, and your record is mine, and my record is yours. That's what we do. So on September 30th, Sunday, September 30th, as long as you are a member of the PNM, it means that your name is on the voters list. That is our election day. And party members should come out and vote for Team Rowley, because you are voting for people who are qualified, who have demonstrated a willingness and an aptitude for hard work, for teamwork, and as they do it well for the PNM, we'll be doing it well for Trinidad and Tobago, because that is what our assignment is. And when you come out on Sunday, you come out and vote for the candidates to run the party for the next 4 years. In the case of certain members of the leadership, and others for 2 years, depending on which post they run for. But you know your party is in good hands. So take a few minutes to come out and vote. And when you vote, that is your contribution to maintaining in this country stability, to looking towards progress, and ensuring that we of the PNM have taken our country's responsibility seriously. And that's why we say, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
We are a chosen generation.
Thank you very much, political leader. And at this point in time, we want to formally introduce our candidates. So as I call your name, please come to the stage and join your political leader. Operations Officer, Ms. Irene Hines. Come on to the stage. Youth Officer, Mr. Ndale Young. Field Officer, Mr. Abdon Mason. Elections Officer, Mr. Indar Parasram. Labor Relations Officer, Mrs. Jennifer Batiste Primus. Social Media Officer, Mr. Avinash Singh. Public Relations Officer, Mrs. Laurel Lezama Leasing. Assistant General Secretary, Mr. Daniel Duki. General Secretary, Mr. Foster Cummings. Vice Chairman, Mr. Robert Lohan. Chairman, Mr. Colm Imbud. And your political leader, Dr. the Honourable Keith Christopher Rowley.